You check your bank balance at 11:47 p.m. The number is the same as it was at 4:12 p.m., and at 9:03 a.m., and yesterday at lunch. You know this. You check anyway. The phone's blue light cuts across your face in a dark bedroom, and your thumb does the motion before your mind does: open the app, glance, lock the screen, set it face down on the comforter. 30 seconds pass. You pick it up again. There is a specific muscle in your jaw that tightens when you do this. You have never named it, but it is the same muscle that tightened when you were 9 years old and overheard your parents arguing about the electric bill. Your amygdala, the small almond-shaped structure deep in your temporal lobe, is doing exactly what it evolved to do: scanning for threats. The threat it has learned to scan for is a 4-digit number on a glowing rectangle. Research by Martin Seligman in the late 1960s described a state called learned helplessness, when an animal, repeatedly shocked with no way to escape, eventually stops trying even when an exit is offered. You are not being shocked. You are checking. But the neural circuitry is the same, a system trained to expect that nothing you do will change the number. So you do the only thing the brain permits when it has surrendered. You watch. Tomorrow you will check again. The number will be the same. You will tell yourself you are being responsible. Level 1 complete. But here's where most people stay. You're standing in the cereal aisle of the grocery store and you have been here for 9 minutes. You know it is 9 minutes because you looked at the time when you walked in, and you looked again just now. The store brand oats are $3.49. The name brand is $4.79. You are doing math you do not need to do. You make $87,000 a year. The difference between these two boxes will not, mathematically, change your life. And yet your shoulders are pulled up toward your ears, and a small voice in your chest is whispering the word careful. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a quieter voice asks, why do I do this? Not the spending itself. The watching of the spending. The endless, low-grade vigilance. You almost see it. You catch the edge of the pattern the way you catch the edge of a dream on waking. Behavioral economists have a name for this, what Kahneman and Tversky called loss aversion, the tendency for the pain of a small loss to register more intensely than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. Your brain is not broken. It is, in fact, working perfectly. It is just working on a problem that no longer exists. The problem is from a childhood, a previous job, a previous relationship, a moment when the cereal really did matter. The almond in your skull does not know that moment is over. You buy the store brand. You feel a small, mean satisfaction. Level 2 complete. But here's where most people stay. You buy the book. You buy 3 books. The covers have words like wealth, habits, mindset, and on Sunday night you sit on the couch with a yellow highlighter and you underline a sentence about paying yourself first. You feel, briefly, like a different person. On Monday morning you open a spreadsheet. You name it budget, real this time. You categorize, you color code, you set up automatic transfers to a high-yield savings account that pays 4.3%. For 9 days you are a financial monk. On day 10 you walk past a window and see a jacket. The jacket is $240. You buy the jacket. You are home before you understand that you have done this. The shame arrives at 8:47 p.m. and it arrives in your stomach, not your head. Here is what no book told you: you tried to change the behavior without changing the brain that produces the behavior. Neuroscientists describe 2 systems, the prefrontal cortex, the slow, deliberate planner, and the limbic system, the fast, emotional driver. Willpower, evidence suggests, draws on the prefrontal cortex like a battery, and the battery is small. By 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, after work and traffic and a passive-aggressive email from your manager, the battery is empty. The limbic system, fully charged, walks into the store. You do not have a discipline problem. You have an order of operations problem. Level 3 complete. But here's where most people stay. You are not looking for it when you find it. You are on the train on a Tuesday, half watching a video about something else, when a researcher says the phrase cognitive bandwidth. The screen shows a study by Sendhil Molenathan and Eldar Shafir, economists who found that the experience of scarcity, of any kind, appears to consume mental processing power, leaving less available for long-term thinking. They are not talking about poverty. They are talking about you. They are talking about the part of your brain that was supposed to plan the next 10 years and is, instead, calculating whether you can afford the oat milk. You sit very still. The train moves. A small thing happens in your chest, not a feeling exactly, more like a door unlatching. For the first time, the thing you have been ashamed of has a shape. It is not a character flaw. It is a bandwidth problem. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for delayed gratification, long-term planning, and strategic thinking, is running too many background processes. Every time you check the balance, every time you do the serial math, you are spending cognitive currency. There is no leftover for the version of you that builds wealth. That version requires silence, and your head has been allowed room for a very long time. You stare out the window at warehouses going by. You do not feel fixed. You feel, for the first time, locatable. Level 4 complete. But here's where most people stay. You stop checking. Not entirely, that would be a willpower task, and you have learned that willpower is a battery, not a strategy. Instead, you remove the banking app from your home screen and bury it 3 folders deep. You install a friction. On Sunday morning, with coffee, at the kitchen table, in daylight, you sit down for 20 minutes and you look at the numbers once. Then you close the laptop. The first week, your thumb still reaches for the spot where the app used to be. You feel the phantom motion. By the 3rd week, the reach softens. Neuroscientists studying habit formation, drawing on the work of researchers like Encodes at MIT, describe how habits live in the basal ganglia, a deep brain structure that runs behavior on autopilot. New routes are not built by force. They are built by repetition in a calm nervous system. You are not strong. You are just no longer in the room with the trigger. Something else shifts. With the constant low-grade vigilance turned off, a strange resource appears: attention. You read a full chapter of a book without picking up the phone. You have a conversation with your partner where you actually hear them. On a Thursday evening you find yourself, for no reason you can name, opening a tab and typing the words index fund expense ratio. You did not plan this. The prefrontal cortex, given a quiet room, started looking around. Level 5 complete. But here's where most people stay. Your car makes a sound. It is not a sound you have heard before. It is a kind of grinding, low and patient, and the mechanic uses the word transmission and then the word 2800. Your old self would be here already, the jaw muscle, the checking, the calculations about which credit card has the most available limit. You feel the old self reach for the wheel. Your amygdala fires. Your heart rate climbs. The mechanic is watching you. Here is what is happening underneath. A moment of acute financial stress is, neurologically, almost indistinguishable from a physical threat. The same cortisol cascade, the same narrowing of attention, the same hijacking of the prefrontal cortex by the limbic system. Research on stress and decision-making, drawing on work by neuroscientists like Amy Arnson at Yale, suggests that under acute stress, the executive functions of the prefrontal cortex go offline first, and the older, faster emotional circuits take over. The old you would decide right now. You do not. You say the only sentence that has ever helped: "I'll call you back in an hour." You walk outside. You feel the parking lot pavement through your shoes. You name 5 things you can see. The cortisol begins, slowly, to clear. An hour later you call the mechanic and you negotiate. You pay from the emergency fund you have been quietly building for 14 weeks. The number in the account goes down. Nothing in you breaks. Level 6 complete. But here's where most people stay. 8 months in, you notice something strange. You are no longer thinking about money most of the time. The bandwidth that used to be spent on vigilance has been quietly redirected, and it is going somewhere. You read about asset allocation the way other people read about sports. You ask your manager a question about compensation that, a year ago, you would have rehearsed for a week. You ask it on a Tuesday, casually, while pouring coffee. The raise arrives in November. You do not buy a jacket. You move it, that same week, into the brokerage account, and you do not feel deprived, you feel the specific, quiet pleasure of a system functioning. This is the part the books undersell. Neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to rewire itself through repeated experience, mapped by researchers like Michael Merzenich, does not produce dramatic transformation. It produces drift. Neural pathways that fire together strengthen, slowly. The route from trigger to checking weakens. The route from opportunity to action thickens. You are not a different person. You are the same person whose default settings have changed. Your partner notices first. They say, "You seem lighter." You think about this for several days. The word that fits is not lighter. The word that fits is quieter. The loud room in your head, the one that used to run scarcity calculations at 11:47 p.m., has gone still, and in the stillness, something else has had room to grow, an instinct for capital, for patience, for the long horizon. Level 7 complete. But here's where most people stay. You are on a balcony, 3 years later, and someone you have just met asks what you do with money. You hesitate, not because you do not know, but because the honest answer sounds strange. You say, "I try to think clearly about it as rarely as possible." They laugh. They think you are joking. You are not. What you have built is not a portfolio, although the portfolio exists. What you have built is a nervous system that no longer treats wealth as a threat to be monitored. The systems run themselves, the automatic transfers, the index funds, the quarterly review, the cash buffer. The decisions are made in advance, when the prefrontal cortex is fully online, on Sunday mornings with coffee. The rest of the week, your brain is free to do what it was actually designed for, to notice, to plan, to imagine. This, evidence suggests, is the real architecture of financial well-being, not income, not assets, but the quality of attention you can bring to the rest of your life. Learned helplessness, Seligman would later show, has a counterpart, learned optimism, the experimentally demonstrated capacity to teach a brain that its actions do, in fact, matter. You stand at the railing. The street below is doing what streets do. Somewhere out there, a person you used to be is checking a phone in the dark. You do not feel superior to them. You feel something closer to tenderness. They were not weak. They were just in a loud room. You finish your drink. You go inside. The number in the account, when you check it on Sunday, will be slightly higher. You will not check it again until next week.
Take a slow breath in. You just learned something your brain did not want you to see, that helplessness is a learned pattern, not a personal truth. Let that settle. Feel your chest rise, your shoulders soften. Notice the small weight in your hands. This is where insight becomes memory, in the body, not just the mind. Picture the version of you who has integrated this. Not richer yet, but quieter. Someone who notices the old voice saying, "Why try?" and recognizes it as a 1967 experiment, not a fact. Your default mode network is rewriting a story right now. Let it. You do not need to force anything. When you open your eyes, return to the video. Watch the next minute knowing the cage was never locked, only